When you think about the town you grew up in, are your memories pleasant and heartwarming? Do you dream of a place that you can go and feel as if that place is your home? Well, if you're joining us and going through this 6-month reading plan through the book of Psalms, today's reading is Psalm 122, and I encourage you to read that psalm. Well, Psalm 122, verses 6 through 9 says this: Pray for the peace of Jerusalem, that they may prosper who love you. May peace be with your walls and prosperity with your palaces. For the sake of my brothers and my friends, I will now say, may peace be with you. And for the sake of the house of the Lord, our God, I will seek your good. Well, I've lived in many places during my lifetime. I moved from Connecticut to Arizona and back in 7 years. I've lived in Germany for 6 years, spent time in Greece, and lived in Dallas-Fort Worth since 1978. But there is one place in which I long to live. But before I tell you where I want to live, I want to emphasize that I'm happy where I have lived and am now living. I love those with whom God has given me to live, but I look for two other places, one external and one temporal. Frankly, I want to be with Jesus. I long to be worshiping God with all those who came before me. I want to meet the earthly church fathers and the early church fathers. I want to question Paul on some passages in the New Testament that seem unclear to me. I want to meet the martyrs who willingly went to death while proclaiming Christ. But the temporal home I want to live in is Greece. Now, when I fell in love with my wife, Tony, I fell in love with her birth country. When I go to Greece, I feel as though I'm home. That's a strange feeling because I've spent very little time actually in that country when compared to other places I've spent the rest of my life. Now, please don't get me wrong. I love the United States, and I generally love where I live. I truly enjoy being able to see our grandchildren and our children. I am comfortable where I am and would probably be uncomfortable not being able to see our grandchildren regularly. But I feel as David felt when he walked into Jerusalem. He knew that he was home, and he knew that's where God wanted him to be. I think that God desires us to long for him. I believe that God wants us to look forward to our homecoming. But I also feel that God wants us to work here on the earth. Philippians 2:12 tells us to work out our salvation with fear and trembling. Ephesians 2:10 tells us that God lays out many works for us to do while we are here on the earth. So our responsibility is twofold. We're to seek God's kingdom first, and that's where we should desire to live. But we are to work as hard as possible and as hard as we possibly can in fulfilling God's plan for our lives while we are here on earth. Pray for Jerusalem's peace, because each one of us should long for our permanent home. And if you would like a PDF copy of this entire reading plan, please send an email to phineasjacobus@runningtohim.net.